Hey everyone, Casey Cangelosi here. Welcome to episode 78 and part 2 of our Brad Meyer interview from last week. This was recorded on January 22nd, 2017. Joining me also in this session are Megan Arns, Laurel Black, Ben Charles, and as well as a few tag-along co-hosts from the sublist. They are Anna Provo, Caleb Pickering, and Brandon Arve. So thanks everyone and enjoy, and see you next week. Caleb, you have a question, I think.
Yeah, Brad, you had a really good, it's probably about 2 months back, a Facebook question that went up. And I see it come up probably once a year for ever. And it's the classic music ed question of the students saying like, well, I want to be a teacher. I'm going to be a teacher. So why do I need to play Abe? Why do I have to learn this? It says I have to do a half recital. Why do I have to do a full recital? Yeah. I just wanted to, you had a really good thread going on that.
Well,
I know one of your students had.
I thought you were going to bring up the old Mylar versus Kevlar discussion that I had going.
Oh, no.
Really heated. No, yeah, you know, we all run into this, that idea of, because all I teach here is, well, not all now. I have a couple music performance people, but until recently, I've been teaching music education majors only. And one of the things that I struggle with and kind of my connection to the students is, here's me, a guy who literally has 3 degrees in performance, my bachelor's, master's, and DMA. They're all in performance. And then I have these students from music ed who are percussionists. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I've talked some with like people like Jim Campbell about, you know, what do you do with music ed majors? Do you teach them differently than performance majors? And I like his philosophy, and I'm sure I'm not quoting exactly or anything, but it's the idea that you don't treat them any differently. You know, performance majors are trying to get better at what they're doing in lessons. You know, they have that hour slot with you, so you're teaching them an hour's worth. And so should ed majors. You know, you're trying to teach them to be the best they can be. And so instead of trying to hold everyone to this artificial standard of you should be able to play Cerrone 1 at, you know, 200 beats a minute with, you know, less than 2 errors is real artificial. Instead, it's like, are you improving as much as a person should with the 2 to 3 hours of daily practice that should be required of an undergraduate student? And so that was kind of how I approached it. But I found that, especially coming here, the culture wasn't that. I came here, and I remember my first lesson, I taught someone, and this was the second week. It was the, you know, after the first week, all right, here's the solos you'll be playing. This was the second week of, all right, show me what you got. And they played the first measure poorly and stopped. And I said, okay, how much did you practice? And they said 15 minutes. And I said, okay, well, 15 minutes times 7 is an hour 45 minutes. So you practiced an hour 45 minutes in the entire week. And that person said, no, I practiced 15 minutes one day. So I think, you know, I was lucky. I could only go up from there.
But there's a trick. If you're doing this, that's, you know, you do this for 5 minutes, that's 5 and 5, so it's 10.
Yeah.
Fact. Yeah, and I think you have something for Brad.
Yeah, it works right along. So I've seen a lot of posts over the past few years saying how much better your program has gotten and how people have never heard of it, and now it's something that they hear of pretty regularly, and it's something I see a lot. If it comes up in my feed or in PAS or things, I see your name or SF Austin quite a bit. So when you were starting your program and you walked in, you realized what your students are and their ability levels. What are some of the things where you're like, this is how I'm going to fix this? In order for this to be a legitimate program, I need to X, Y, Z.
Yeah, you know, and it kind of does go hand in hand with that music ed question. It's, you know, for me, I'm very results oriented. I want my university percussion program to be a PASIC showcase concert group at some point, hopefully in the near future. And so all my goals are kind of geared towards that. And so trying to get the students involved in that, like on day one, everyone knows what they want. They want the best percussion program ever. And so you treat it like a 16-year-old in a Ferrari, and you just mash the gas and you push it way too hard and you wreck. And that's exactly what I did when I got here. I tried not to, and I knew that was a mistake that a lot of people made. And I had some luck in that I had a little bit of help, and I didn't do that totally. But, you know, I got here and I was like, giving freshmen. I was like, all right, well, here's Merlin, and not to that extent, but it was like, I was like, here's what I want my students to be playing. These are the things that I find musically fulfilling. You should play them.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't terracing things. I wasn't fully aware of the skill level that I was teaching. And so it took me about, I'd say, 2 to 3 years to really finally develop how to teach the students, because I came in wanting to have a PAS showcase concert level group by year 2. And the longer I'm here, the more I realize that, not that it needs to take forever, but realistically now I know how long that could take. Mm-hmm. And so I've started to develop things. I wasn't a huge fan of like the barrier system or the track system, but I came here and so I taught the way that I knew how to be taught, which was, here's a solo, learn it for next week, And what I found when I got here is that students were like, I'd hand them a solo, and they'd come back the next week, and they'd say, well, I have a ton of questions, and I don't like this piece, and I didn't really practice it that much. And so I had to they're like, we need direction. We need to know where we're going. Because for me, that was never an issue. If a teacher handed me a piece of music, I assumed that was the next piece of music I should play. And I went into it with that kind of blind enthusiasm. I think millennials, which I know is a grossly generic term, but I think that they question a lot more, but I don't know if they problem solve as much, which holds them back, because I hand them a piece of music and they go, well, I think this is probably too hard for me, before they even get into playing it. So instead, they have to know, okay, I get 3 weeks on Stone Man from the Ford book, so I need to make sure that I'm pacing myself. And that's what I really learned about this program, which I know is completely different from other programs, is that I needed students, especially early on, to know how long they had on something as kind of like a speed limit in reverse. Like, if you can't play this by 3 weeks, you're not doing what a freshman in college should. But if you can do this well in 2 weeks, we'll move on to the next thing. Or, if they come with the enthusiasm of, I want to play this piece, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying yes, because that initial enthusiasm will give them the energy and the courage to try something that, if I had handed them the same thing that they didn't have that enthusiasm for, would cause them to second guess themselves, second guess the piece, and maybe just give up on it altogether. So it's really about finding the personality of your studio, I think, early on when you get a gig, and then slowly shaping it to maybe more of what you think is ideal for that studio, while still keeping in mind that that studio personality is still ever present when you're there.
It also takes a long time to build culture too, because like you're coming in 1 year and students have been exposed to you for 1 year. So like then looking 2, 3, 4 years down the road, once you get to the point where the seniors have had you they're on their 4th year having you, then like the expectation is much more clear. And I mean, I always think about how much I was influenced by the older students in the studio. I think if I was the only person in the percussion studio, actually, we could talk about this, that, it would be, it's a different experience. I remember so clearly the grad students that I was, well, not grad students in my undergrad, but the upperclassmen that I was looking up to, and same thing in grad school. I don't know. So it takes time. Yeah,
and Scott Harris, the guy that was here before me, he had a great quote. He said, because he was here for 14 years, and he said SFA didn't feel like his gig, like his studio, until 5 years later.
Yeah.
And that really sunk in about year 3. I was like, I get it, because by year 3, which actually was my first tenure track year, because I'm mid tenure now. I'm in my 4th tenure track year, but this is the 5th year or something like that. It's hard to keep track of anymore. But my first 2 years, I was adjunct slash visiting professor. So even though students had me for a couple of years, it wasn't a reliable feeling for them. They didn't feel like they could buy in, especially that first or second year. So it's kind of taken the studio a long time to embrace me and buy into what I'm trying to do with them, which is what everyone tries to do, which is make them the best they can be. But, they didn't have that feeling of, I can trust that this person's going to be there. There was always this holding back. So it's now in my 5th year, I believe. It's finally feeling like it's becoming, my generalized studio, not like my studio, but like it's their studio, but they're doing the things that I am hoping they'll do. Like now they're doing drum corps and doing summer music camps. You know, they're starting to branch out past the small sphere of just their SFA studies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this what I have two things to say. This wasn't the original one, but I think the last thing you were hitting on about students not feeling like an adjunct is like a permanent faculty member or something like that. I think that's like one thing that universities really haven't figured out. It's like that you're getting this cheap labor, but it does come at a cost. But anyway, I had another point that's going way back to the original question of, you know, how did you create it and how did you make it your own? I think another thing is just people like to feel like you have faith in them and that you have an expectation of them. And a student that walks in having practiced a Sarone etude for 15 minutes thinks that you don't have any expectation of them and that that's what's okay. And I think that you're turning around and pointing out, no, you're better than this. Don't do it for me. Do it because you yourself are better than this. Really, I think it gets results.
Yeah, and I love that because that's exactly what I tell the students. You know, I'm not pushing them to make me better. I'm pushing them to make them better. And they're the only ones that lose out when they don't practice as hard as we hope they practice. You know, because it's not my grade, it's their grade. But
yeah.
Then you get into the subject of grades, and it's like, it's not about the grade. Because if you're doing the right stuff, grades won't even matter because you'll get A's because you're doing the things that make you great. So I totally agree. That's 100% my feeling about teaching students is that, you know, in the beginning, they hated me. You know, students legitimately hated me, and I knew it. They're like, he's a jerk. He pushes us way too hard. He expects too much of us. And I was like, I understand because there were people that had been here for 4 or 5 years, and I'm holding them to this level, and they only were holding themselves to this level. And so there was a huge gap that has just slowly come up. And I've had to adjust every year and find what works best, and sometimes it's lower and higher, but it's all about their improvement.
And I'm guessing they realize eventually once they do get there, they're happy about it.
Absolutely. That's the most rewarding part is I can remember right now I have a sophomore and 2 freshmen who just figured that out the month before school ended. And it was like, those people get it now. And once they get it, they generally don't lose it.
Laura, was that sound the little glass plate falling out of my lamp?
Yeah, I broke the lamp.
Oh, did it finally break? That thing falls out all the time, and
Oh,
you
it
try
does?
to catch it, and it's freaking boiling
It's
hot.
so
Is it a leg
hot.
lamp?
Oh my
Oh,
god.
it's just a little. It's my desk lamp while I was sitting at my desk.
Sorry.
I thought it was the
Sorry,
cat.
everybody. Carry on.
Well, I have 2 little items, and the first one's really little, and both of them pertain to Brad's yes committee. So Brad used to be on the technology committee, and Laurel and I, yes, glasses nerd dweeb. Laurel and I we were just clinicians in Fort Wayne, Indiana at their IMEA. So big thanks to Mark Wooldridge for bringing us out. We had a blast.
Nice.
And we went to a
And
very
Micah
famous...
Detweiler, he was our other host.
Oh, yeah, Micah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, big thanks to Micah, too. He'll be on the show eventually. We have to book him. But we went to a very famous music shop that has its roots in music technology. Does anybody know what that music shop is?
Sweetwater.
Oh yeah, I saw
Yeah.
the slide.
Oh yeah,
Brandon
the slide.
Arve for the win, totally. So we were lucky enough that during one of our clinics, there was this nice fella named Christian. And oh man, I should have looked up his name because I'm friends with him on Facebook. But
Christian Good? Is that right?
oh, thanks, dude. Yes, thank you, dude. You're killing
Yeah.
it as a
Oh, I
sub.
talk to him a lot.
You're killing it. You're totally A+ing this subless host thing. So
I don't have a full-time gig, so I just sit around at home and do this.
Facebook stocks.
he's hustling. He's side hustling this Percussion podcast. So Christian gave us a tour of the Sweetwater factory, and I don't have a whole lot to tell you guys other than that. It was just really cool. I couldn't believe, of course, it was like a mall. Okay, so this is a music store, but, multiple floors, huge show floor. I don't know,
many recording studios, concert hall, giant slide, racquetball court, gym, all this stuff for their employees. And the more we found out about the company, the more I just got a great feeling of, wow, this is a really good company that treats their employees really well and really
sends their
believes.
customers candy every time you order something.
And that's
Sometimes
right,
I'll
they
even
do.
order things I'll split it in 2 orders, so I get 2 bags of candy.
That's a good idea. That they always send candy with their orders, but I was just so amazed at how well they treat their employees and how happy everyone there is. And it was just such a good feeling because I feel like the world has taught me to hate big companies and think big companies are evil, and I'm sure a lot of them still are, but wow, it was so nice to know, oh man, Sweetwater's like a really awesome company. So I guess I just like to put in a nice casual plug for Sweetwater and say that it's really cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're super helpful, even if you don't plan on buying something from them. You know, like
Yeah,
if
and
you
they
just want
call
to know
you to
how
like
something
check
works.
in too, right?
Yeah.
You guys
Yep.
get that, and you have like a rep, and they like call you and check out, make sure you
Yeah.
like understand the
Yeah.
products you got. You
Yep.
received.
And yeah, exactly. And they keep track of they try to get a sense of what you do. So they know I was going to them for some recording equipment, and they're trying to get a sense of what I do. Like, okay, this guy wants a synthesizer, but he's not like a DJ or a, electronic artist. He's like a composer. Okay. And they kind of put it together. And then, yeah, my guy will call and say, hey, we know you were looking for this sound interface. We also have this killer synthesizer that just went on super sale. I just wanted you to know that's there.
Wow,
And I
that's
ended up
awesome.
buying it.
Wow.
And then also when you buy something, they call you before they put the order through and say, hey, we saw you just bought this little sound interface. What are you planning on using this for? And if you tell them the wrong thing that it's for, they'll say, okay, you don't want that, you want this. It's just a nice thing. So anyway,
Yep.
just a quick little, a fun little thing that Laurel and I got to do. The other thing I wanted to say, so Brad is, of course, on the Health and Wellness Committee right now, and I bumped into a little news item that is from a podcast I've mentioned on the show before called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. This is probably my favorite podcast out there after our very own podcast. And they presented this little news item, and I thought it was in our field, so I better share it. So this is from inc.com, www.inc.com, and the headline says, Neuroscience says listening to this song reduces anxiety by up to 65%. So it goes on. Now, neuroscientists out of the UK have specified which tunes give you the most bang for your musical buck. The study was conducted on participants who attempted to solve difficult puzzles as quickly as possible while connected to sensors. The puzzles induced a certain level of stress. The participants listened to different songs while researchers measured brain activity as well as physiological states that included heart rate, blood pressure, and rate of breathing. According to Dr. Lewis Hodgson of MindLab International, which conducted this research, the top song produced a greater state of relaxation than any other music tested to date. And somewhere in the article it said, the best song on earth to relax you. So they found that, in fact, listening to the song called Weightlessness, and I didn't write down the artist, but it's on the website. You can
Marconi Union.
Oh, good job. Okay, wow, way to go.
Anna did her undergrad in music therapy, so she knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Whoa, so you're going to totally dig this. Resulted in a striking 65% reduction in participants' overall anxiety and a 35% reduction in their usual physiological resting rates. Also in their top 10 songs were music by Enya, Coldplay, Adele, and an aria from Mozart's Marriage of Figaro, the On the Breeze aria. So, again, this was reported by The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, and one of their hosts, named Evan Bernstein, who is Connecticut chapter chairman of the New England Skeptical Society and co-host of The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, he says he tried to find the actual study and dig up the information. So no link to the study, nothing to be found online, no journal publication, no Google search, nothing. However, he did reach out to MindLab that conducted the study, and apparently they did respond to him. And what they said is that this was a study using only 20 songs on 24 participants and was farmed out from a private client. So they also said this was a case of over-eager reporting, and there's nothing to indicate any of this is true. So it's just a total, at least according to them and what he found, it was just a total bogus study about this being a type of medicinal therapy. So I thought it was worth sharing because it's not music therapy, it's just listening to music. We know listening to music can relax you. And some things I thought was bothersome is it didn't address very specific things like, did this reduction in stress help the participants solve these puzzles? Maybe it simply relaxed them to the point where they didn't care about the puzzles as much. Let's see, what else? Also, there was no information about what other musics they were up against. For all we know, they were listening to loud Schoenberg versus this lovely Adele song. Of course the Adele is going to be more relaxing. There was nothing on the participants' backgrounds, and there was also nothing about, does this just lower their anxiety in that very moment, or is there a prolonged benefit to listening to this type of music? So my thinking, of course, is that this is that classic smash and grab quick headline for something to report, and I think it's harmful because people run with it, and it's a bad thing. Oh, I've totally missed everything in the chat. So who's got something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to ask on this subject. Have you seen this new IBM commercial that came out recently?
Yeah.
Supposedly Watson, you guys know Watson, right? Like the supercomputer brain. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, apparently Watson analyzed, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands or whatever songs, and found apparently this perfect algorithm for what makes the perfect song. Looking at melodies and tempos and harmonies and everything else. I haven't looked at anything to see, what the real research was behind that, but I didn't know if you knew anything about that, Casey.
No, I mean, of course I've heard about those types of things, but it seems to me it's so much up to your musical experience. I think this would vary for us as opposed to these people. And that's why I was very curious, well, who are these people? What is their experience with music? I might find the music very distracting because there's certain things that you catch on to and you start to wonder about or whatever, and all of a sudden it's not so relaxing at all. It's actually taking all of your attention away or something. So a lot of people... Yeah, sure.
Yeah, culturally, it has a huge difference, too. There was a study done that they used the same songs in the UK that they did in the United States. And they found that in the UK, I think the number one song, and it was a very, very large study, was Tiny Dancer to be the most relaxing. And it was almost like completely opposite in the United States, the way the list went down. So culturally, like a huge difference.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Well, something I was going to add is people may say like, okay, well, what's the harm? These guys did this quick false reporting and reported it, before the real research was done. What's the problem? Well, I would just say, guess what? We have a president right now who's part of the anti-vaccination movement, which is also is all created from a lot of that same type of reporting. Little anecdotal studies get made and people report on something even though they've been debunked over and over and over, yet the movement is strong. And now this guy's in the White House who's a huge anti-vaccinator. Like, he's way into it. In fact, he's trying to appoint somebody who is openly into these things. So it can be pretty harmful, I think.
They're just alternative facts,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, he's going to shut down the podcast. This podcast is coming for him. I didn't march.
Did anyone
today,
go to a women's march yesterday?
No, I didn't. In fact, Laurel really wanted to go, but I was worried
did
she was going to get shot or something.
There was a big one here in Lexington. I didn't even know it was going on.
Oh,
I didn't
really?
know anything about it.
A lot
Yeah.
of people came out. There was like
They did.
3,000 or something. I saw the numbers. It was
Yeah.
impressive.
There was one here in NAC. I didn't even know about it till about 9 p.m. when it was over, but I would have actually loved to have been a part of it. So
Yeah.
I figured there wouldn't be anything in such a small town, but
Yeah.
I guess I missed the memo.
I was
They're really trying to
texting-
push to get a full count on the numbers because I mean it's
insane.
it's insane.
There's
I saw
millions.
somebody post on Facebook today that like if you were at a women's march to like text text something to a certain number, they're like trying to get better numbers because it was just absolutely phenomenal.
My uncle was sending me pictures and video from New York. He was about a block from Trump Tower for a significant amount of time, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty wild, I think, but very powerful.
Yeah, I saw that our previous guest Amy Garapick hopped on a bus from New York and went down. She was there in DC.
Anybody care to share what they hope comes from it? Are we going to go that route?
Support, hope.
Yeah,
I think it is powerful. It's just powerful to say, hey, a lot of people care about this, especially when you do something that big, something that large. It's just impactful to see just the numbers, and that many people are willing to come out for it.
And it's all over the world too. That was the crazy thing to me is that, 7 continents. That's insane. It's like this is happening here, and sometimes we feel, you forget what's outside, and that so many people are listening and watching what's happening.
I'm going to give Caleb a B for not going.
I don't have a response, I guess.
Check your syllabus, Caleb.
Yeah, check the syllabus. Yeah.
It's probably in there.
Oh, yeah.
He was waiting for his shirt to dry. He missed it.
yeah.
Exactly. I'm so poor. This is during the school week. I don't even wear shirts. I just wear a jacket and no shirt. This is all I have.
That's all he has.
They pay me nothing.
Yeah, 0. He just wears
Good
it
recruiting
bad.
for JMU.
Well, Casey, kind of going back to what you were talking about with that false kind of reporting or quick stuff, especially with health and wellness, which I think that was kind of where it kind of started from. There's a lot of this going on right now because it's such a young field. I mean, Anna, you're what's your official, aren't you getting a specific position in the health and wellness field?
Yes, but we're still discussing what that sounds like and looks like. But
Okay.
yes.
So, I mean, feel free to jump in if you want. But, for me, especially as the chair, I've done a lot of health and wellness, not a lot, but I've done some health and wellness writing in the past. And like that yoga article that Laura brought up, I really try not to spout my own opinions unless I specifically state this is my opinion. I really try to look at, if I'm doing yoga stuff, go to a person who knows about yoga. Don't just look at a listicle or, my workout stuff that I talk about a lot is, I have a personal trainer person who I trust who's been in the world of bodybuilding and all that stuff and try to get the goods and bads about that portion. And so I think it's important that, people aren't afraid to look at these articles and try to maybe take something that they could benefit from themselves, but also with a grain of salt and say this listening to Elton John may be great for someone, and may be completely the opposite for someone else. And so a lot of the health and wellness stuff is so individualistic and subjective that it's more of you are your own person. So try stuff. And when it works for you, if, there's kind of a consensus and as long as it's medically healthy, go for it, and if it doesn't work for you, then don't be afraid to say, that just didn't work for me. A lot of people, especially with working out, they're like, man, that guy over there lost 30 pounds in 2 weeks on the elliptical. And, I've lost a half a pound in 2 months. And it's like, man, your body reacts differently. Your mind reacts differently. And it's just important to self-analyze so much and try things that you think can help. So,
Well, and I think what bothered these guys so much about this headline is that it was so dishonest. When you do call it therapy, you just have to use the right language. I think it's fine to say, hey, this little study happened and we found these anecdotal observations and this is what it showed. And there is something to take from that. Hey, maybe if you need to relax, there's certain music in your playlist you could change out, or there's certain music that you respond to more than others. But that's not as interesting of a headline as, hey, we have this magic song that is the most relaxing song on earth, and neuroscientists say that it does this. No, they don't. They do not.
Right.
That is not what they are saying. I don't know. It's really annoying.
Yeah, as soon as it came on the blog when we were listening to it, like, if something is on Skeptic's Guide, it's because they're probably about to rip it apart. That's why it's on the show. So when it came up like music and da-da-da-da, my little, like, I must defend my field beacons were like...
well, that's why I shared it, yeah.
Yeah, but then it is like, this is not a good study, but I was relieved. I don't remember, Casey, at any point in their discussion, did they like kind of belittle the effects of music on a person, from what I recall, which was kind of surprising, but also restored my faith, like, okay, this is all right. This is okay. They're not about to dog what we do.
I don't think they directly belittled it, but I think the whole thing is belittling to what is actually a real serious field called music therapy.
Yeah.
By misusing the language and by just kind of slapping on the word therapy and claiming it's medicinal and claiming it's extensive and using the word neuroscientist, it just misrepresents reality. So in a way, I
100% agree.
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah.
Brandon just shared about the trouble with the rush to be first, which is, I feel like this has happened the past maybe 4 to 8 years. With peer-reviewed journals, I mean, it's always going to be good quality. So there is that rush to be first, because once it's peer-reviewed and it's published, the next person's research is just going to be building. But now that there's non-peer-reviewed sources, I mean, it's whatever. Like, people really don't. If it's a headline and it looks good and there's not too many ads, people probably take it as truth.
Is this something learned in DMA school?
Yeah, doctorate.
Oh, that sounded smart. Bibliography.
But yeah, and because we have social media now, also, we're less able to filter what we're consuming if you're just on checking Facebook, and then it's just there. We're just getting all of these things, and it's less filtered.
In this recent the most recent election, there's all this talk about literal fake news, not misinformation, but clickbait news headlines such as Hillary Clinton whatever, Trump whatever, and it's of course just websites trying to generate clicks and generate revenue with ads, and it's literally fake news. They're just making stuff up to quickly get clicks or whatever, and it sounds like they're finding it to be criminal.
There was and now I say there's a study, but now I don't know if the study's real anymore. There's a study that came out real recently that was talking about around 80% of high school students graduating, if they take the ads away from clickbait stuff so it doesn't look like it, they are unable to tell the difference between actual facts and things that are made up.
The students aren't.
The students are unable.
Sure. I don't doubt it. Yeah.
And there was a really good podcast that came out sometime last year. If you remember, about 2 years ago, there was a headline that said, chocolate is the new weight loss thing. Like, if you want to lose weight or get healthy, eat chocolate. And this guy had falsified an entire document to prove how easy it is to get something published in one of those paid $300 and we'll publish in a journal, that then some BuzzFeedy kind of thing picked up and started sharing. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, I got to eat chocolate if I want to lose weight. And the guy came out after all that happened to prove, he's like, look, this was meant to be so horribly against anything you should ever think that it's obvious. People are just putting stuff out without even thinking about it. I mean, I can think of tons of things I see on Facebook where I see someone share something and I'm betting money in my head that they didn't read the whole thing, if not just the title of it before they clicked share.
If I could actually, there's one meme that's been going around. Have you guys seen the quote from Winston Churchill, where it says during World War II they were thinking about cutting funding from the arts in order to help the war efforts, and Winston Churchill said, if we cut funding from the arts, then what are we fighting for? That is actually a patently false quote. He never said that or anything resembling that. So.
Wow.
Well, and that kind of goes with what I was just putting here in our little chat. Like, there's this rush to be the first to everything, to create it, to implement it, and to debunk it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange because like that's how business used to function. When you had an idea, you had to run out to be the first because you were afraid of competition or somebody stealing your idea. But now the trend in business is actually not that at all. It's to actually be second or third, and to allow people to sort of be the R&D department for you, if that kind of makes sense. Let somebody else go out there and make those mistakes on their dime and everything else, and you just kind of use what you learned from their mistakes to make it better.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be a trend that kind of trickles into our, academia or research or even just this political kind of stuff. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
One of my favorite fake memes that I was sad to find out it's fake, but I still think it's really good. You guys might have seen it. It's Morgan Freeman.
I knew this is what it was going to be. Yeah.
Oh, I love this one.
So good.
It says, "I hate the term homophobia. There's no phobia. There's nothing these people are afraid of. They're just assholes."
Yeah.
Like they're not. I just thought I thought it was really excellent. Let's see. So last topic for the big double header episode, and thanks to everyone for doing a long episode here tonight. Ben is going to report on probably, one of my favorite composers. So what do you got, Ben?
Yeah, so I know Brad has played the piece Grab It. He has a recording of it, and I think if I'm correct, you actually worked on creating the percussion version of that? Or am I lying? Is that fake news?
I just premiered the percussion arrangement of it, but
Gotcha.
he had actually already had it written
enough.
a little while ago.
So anyway,
close enough. We'll go with it. Let's just report a headline.
So because of that, I wanted
Brad
to talk
Meyer.
today about Jakob Terveldis, or as he's more commonly known in the United States as Jacob TV. Jacob TV is a Dutch composer. He was born November 14th, 1951 in Westerlee, which is in the Netherlands. He grew up around classical music, but he really began his career as a rock musician, and he played in a band actually with Herman Brood. Are you guys familiar with Herman Brood?
No?
I wasn't really until I read the Wikipedia article about him, so to speak, and basically the guy was nuts, and just wild out there. Imagine if Grab It, the piece, was a person. That sounds like Herman Brood. Anyway, Jacob TV studied flute and horn in the Prince Claus Conservatory in Groningen from 1971 to 1976. That's, again, in the Netherlands as well. And then after some of these musical studies, he decided he wanted to turn toward composition. So from 1973 to 1980, he studied composition with Willem Frederik Bonn and electronic music with Luc Pons. And then in the 1980s was really kind of when he broke out onto the scene and had his first success. He had his Symphony No. 1 and Symphony No. 2, as well as a piece called Insomnia, were his first big hit works. All this led to, in 1992, he had a residency in Darmstadt, which has this summer music institute that I think many people are familiar with Pierre Boulez was heavily involved with it, and Stockhausen also was heavily involved in Darmstadt. Anyway, in 1995, Jacob TV created his first what's known as a boombox work called In Size of Rameau for harpsichord and electronic samples from rock music. And these boombox pieces, which he has quite a few of at this point, are for a solo instrument with a pre-recorded electronic soundtrack from many different sources, and basically a lot of them kind of clips up very incredibly short audio clips, like less than 1 word long, and repeats it rapidly to make just really interesting noise is all I can really say about it. So these boombox works in particular kind of helped him rise to success. And by 1998, he was having around 250 performances a year. And as his popularity increased in particular in the U.S., he started going by this Jacob TV name that we know him by. For one thing, it's easier to pronounce than his true Dutch name, and it's also, he said, TV is sort of like this pop culture phenomenon, and his music is so heavily influenced by it that he felt actually a very strong association with the name. And I think a very good way of describing him is, to me, he's like the Andy Warhol of composition. He takes this like pop music and turns it into art, and I don't know, I find it very interesting. And his kind of success has really exploded in the past 20 years or so. In 2001, there was actually a 4-day-long Jacob TV festival in Rotterdam. And in 2007, there was a 3-day festival entitled Grab It, the Music of Jacob TV, which I didn't put in my notes, but I'm almost positive that was in New York. His works have been performed by the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, Rotterdam Philharmonic, Branford Marsalis, James Galway, Evelyn Glennie, and of course our very own Brad Meyer.
And Laurel
he has
Black.
quite a selection of percussion works, including he has a piece called Barracuda Solo, as well as a concerto called Barracuda, which were both commissioned by the Trump percussion competition / sort of also written for Evelyn Glennie. He has 2 of these boombox pieces for solo percussion. One is Grab It, which was originally for saxophone, and he has one called It for marimba and tape, which is about Helen Keller. And then he has a percussion ensemble piece, which I've never heard and couldn't find any information about it, but it's called Post-Nuclear Winter Scenario Number 8 for 6 to 8 percussionists plus piano, which I'm dying to hear if anyone has a recording of it. He also has a percussion duo written for the Safri Duo called Gold Rush, which he later adapted into a concerto called Gold Rush Concerto. And then he has 2 pieces written for gamelan, and 3 pieces for mixed chamber ensemble with percussion, one of which is called Jungle Heart for flute plus percussion duo, as well as a trio called Triangolo. So yeah, a lot of his works, he has a lot of SoundCloud recordings of his works, but it's kind of hard to find information about a lot of them. So yeah, it's really, really cool stuff. And I know Laurel has played his piano piece, Body of Your Dreams, which is another one of these boombox pieces. 2 of my other favorites are, there's one called Jesus is Coming for saxophone quartet, and that's probably my favorite. And then there's also one called I Was Like Wow for trombone, which is about the war in Iraq. So
Our trombone professor just played that at his faculty recital.
yeah, it's just
Great.
it's a striking piece, is all I can say. And that the trombone one in particular, like whenever like it's emotional just for me to listen to it, and like yeah, I mean like when it's over, you're just sitting there like, oh my god.
Oh, for sure. He's got to be. We met the saxophonist who commissioned Grab It. He plays in the Prism Quartet.
Yeah.
We met him at Concord, Laurel.
No, that was before I got there.
Oh, okay.
That was
I
your
met
other
quartet's
wife named
house.
Laurel.
Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah. Right, my other wife named Laurel, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just one of those composers that, there's composers you gather their material because you think, oh, I really should know it, and then there's other composers that you look at the material you have and you're like, oh, I have almost everything this person has a recording of. And yeah, Jacob TV is one of those for me, including the triple disc CD DVD with his giant oratorio. That's just it's just such cool stuff.
I got to meet Jacob TV maybe when he was in the States in 2007, because I met him while I was an undergrad at UT. We were part of a consortium for this saxophone concerto with wind ensemble. And I remembered, I just liked him so much. I was young, I didn't really get to talk to him, but interestingly, while at UT, he sort of befriended one of the master's students who wrote his dissertation on his music, and now is the only or one of the only people, I would think across the globe, that has expressed permission to arrange any of Jacob's boombox works for a different instrumentation. So his piece, Body of Your Dreams, that I play, and it just so happens the pianist in my marimba piano duo, Marianne Parker, she also plays it. So we asked that particular student, whose name is Jose Riojas, who has the permission to arrange pieces, if he would take Body of Your Dreams and make it a duo for us, of course with Jacob's permission, and he did, and it was so cool, and we premiered it in November in
He's
Chicago.
just rad. Yeah, I
It was,
really like
and it's really cool as a duo. And Jose worked out certain things, and he didn't really rewrite much, but he did add a lot and sent it to Jakob, and Jakob was like, I don't like it better like this, but there's evidently things he wanted to hear that he couldn't get out of piano alone. So, pretty cool.
Wow. Well, great job, Ben. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Oh.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ben. Brad. I mean, wait, let's edit that out. Happy
Wait.
birthday, dear Brad.
I thought it was Ben.
Happy birthday to you.
Is it Brad's birthday?
Oh,
It's Ben's birthday.
Yeah, it's my birthday.
Oh, yeah, it's Ben's birthday. Sorry. Sorry. Okay.
I feel like everyone just got tooled. I feel like you guys just got tooled on somehow.
Anyway, happy birthday, Ben.
Thanks.
Megan, that's really sweet of you guys. Just so you know, just so you know, we were frantically trying to get you back on the show. We had no
I know.
idea.
How'd you do that? So do you just have that in a drawer in your office?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's his secondhand birthday gear.
Uh-huh.
And it's Anna's fault because she was the leader of
Operation
making
my
office.
Yeah,
It was giant.
it was pretty
Oh,
bad.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
Megan's
birthday.
birthday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Well, that's
guys.
really
Yeah,
nice, Megan. Happy
as of
birthday, to
tomorrow,
everybody.
by the time you're watching this, I will officially be old because I will be 30.
Oh man, that's the worst. That's
Yeah.
the worst. Turning 30 is the worst. I'm like such a boring, just miserable man.
I'm 1 year away.
You're going to be boring and miserable. Get
Mm.
ready.
Yeah, I'm kind of already a boring, miserable old person, though. So I'm good.
I was
I'm already
very
pretty much
excited to turn
old.
30. Maybe I'm weird. I looked forward to it. I thought, yay, maybe I won't care what other people say quite so much. Not true. Not true.
How'd that
But-
work out?
Yeah, it didn't. But I don't know.
Laurel,
now
what
I
kind of
get to yell at my parents like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm 30. It has a lot more weight than I'm 29.
Yeah. Well, guys, we still didn't need the quotes because we never had a lull in the episode, but Laurel bothered to find one. So, Laurel, what did you find?
This is from the beautiful and lovely Aretha Franklin, who performed maybe most recently at Carole King's Kennedy Center thing. I just thought it was funny. So Aretha says, autotune? I don't even know what autotune is.
Great.
Nice.
That's really awesome. Hey, well, you guys, this was cool to try this experiment with so many people on the podcast. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 freaking people on the podcast. So, maybe one day this thing will just grow and the episodes will happen on their own and none of us original hosts will even be there. We'll just sit back and rake in all the money. It'd be sweet.
Ben and Laurel need to get other mini-me's like Casey and Megan. And
Yeah,
we'll have at Percussion where we just rip at Percussion apart.
Yeah. All the mini-me's just go back and rip us apart on everything we said wrong in the past. So yeah, huge thanks to the mini-me's, both Anna and Caleb, and huge thanks to Brandon Arve for being our first third wheel extra host. This
I'm
is
glad to be
something-
here.
Yeah, great to have you. This is something we hope to do a little more often. And of course, big thanks to our guest, Brad Meyer. It's great having you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, sure. And of course, Megan, Ben, Laurel, thanks so much. Okay, guys, we'll catch you on episode 79 or 78, because I'll probably split this one into 2 episodes. So see you at 79. Thanks, everybody.